again. Especially nice for the grass, which will in turn benefit all the grazers. Right, while we are getting into a position to look at the sun in case it is very beautiful, which it most likely will be, we'll head across to Brent and the Lions and give you an update as to what's going on there, and I'll see you later.
So we're busy meandering down our eastern boundary, and we had such a fantastic start with those lions and hyenas again. I feel like luck is on our side, and I'm hoping we might spot some spots. And so I'm just checking for any leopard tracks that might come in to this eastern area of Djuma Private Game Reserve. And while we have a little quiet moment, it was so frantic and exciting earlier. Just to remind everyone, if there are any new viewers out there, you are able to ask us questions while we're out in the bush, and you can do that by two methods. You're more than welcome to send us an email on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. And we have just stumbled upon a very nice herd of ellies, quite spread out at the moment. Big cow off to the right here. Hello, elephants. Busy taking apart a knob thorn that they've obviously very recently pushed off. It's been so incredible having the amount of elephants we've had recently on Djuma and Arathusa. I mean, there have just been 5 or 6, sometimes up over 10 herds around every day, which has been incredible. See, that one's having a bit of grass. With the amount of elephants we've seen a lot of breeding herds. We haven't seen that many big adult bulls, and obviously elephants mating is quite interesting. The fact that they will only mate when the female's in estrus and the male's in must, so they both have to be in heightened what's the correct word? The females would be sort of heightened heat, so heightened estrogen levels, and males and heightened testosterone levels. And Leslie from sunny California was wondering, do the males stick to one herd, or do they move between multiple herds? And well, Leslie, they do move between multiple herds. And see, she's coming very close to us, and you always just got to watch the language. You can see her opening her ears a little bit there. So if she comes a little bit too close, I'll just ask her to move along, but she's going to move away, showing that displacement and walking away at a slight angle. She might turn her head towards us now, maybe shake it just to let us know that she's very big and she's very strong and we shouldn't mess with her. Oh, and next one coming through, the little one. Right, deciding to rather go round the bush than right past us. So Leslie, elephant bulls will mate with multiple females from multiple herds, and they will move between lots of different herds. Obviously, if they can mate with as many herds as possible, the best chance of spreading their genes. Busy crossing our boundary at the moment. Yes, little one, we see you. You can see that ears out displacement behavior, just moving away at an oblique angle. Oh, there's a little one coming up. There's a bull at the back, but there we are, that one there. By no means an adult, probably early 20s. Oh, sorry, no, it's just a cow who's got a very roundish head. And it is a cow, not a bull. I apologize for that. Hello, little one. So sedately moving off. Still a few from what I can hear in the bush, but the majority of the herd seem to have crossed our eastern boundary. And a little straggler, but I'm sure there's some more behind them. It wouldn't be hanging out by itself there. And there comes another one from behind, so it should be coming out into view shortly. So Leslie, so as I was saying, the Ellie bulls will mate with multiple females over multiple herds to try ensure their genes are spread through as many different herds as possible. Wonderful animals. It's been so great at night while we're sleeping, have the windows wide open and just hearing the elephants all around us, trumpeting, roaring, screaming, branches breaking. And as these ellies cross our boundary, there's an absolute brilliant golden glow breaking through the clouds. And after the high energy intensity of the lions and the hyenas in the last few days, with shadow grabbing that impala, it's quite nice to just sit and reflect on a beautiful African sunset. So from one sunset shot to another with Commander Bond.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Wendy, where we are looking at, well, just a magnificent view of the sunset. And in the sunset you can see some hornbills, Andrew's favourite bird. They are your favourite, aren't they, Andrew?
By far.
They're red-billed hornbills, not that you can see their bill colour at all, but they are sitting, two youngsters, and you won't be able to tell that they're young ones there, but they've got very small beaks, and I suspect that dead tree in which they're sitting is the nest tree. Now they nest in holes in trees, so a dead tree like that would probably have a hole in it that they nested in. That is just too stunning for words. And they've come out, probably recently fledged. I think hornbills probably breed a little bit earlier than some of the other birds, and these guys are definitely just a few months old and much smaller than their parents would be. And birds, of course, grow very fast. Isn't that wonderful? Look at them just enjoying the sunset quietly there. I think it's magnificent that it seems that we're not the only ones that enjoy the beauty of the sun, but even the hornbills like to have a look. I was trying to take a photograph of this with my exceptional camera, and I've just realised that Scott Dyson has taken my tripod head with him. So were he not such a large fellow, I might be tempted to deliver a beating to him on his return from leave, but I don't think I will. He's quite a big chap. Andrew, I've just taken yet another award-winning landscape photograph, if you can believe it.
Let's see.
Look at that, everyone. Award-winning. Hey? Look at that. Good heavens, I'm good.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'm not really good, everybody. I've never actually, I've never owned a camera before, this funny little thing that I have now. So, the other interesting thing, while we sit here and watch the sun, I think it's rather too beautiful for us to go away from just yet. Brent will be watching the lions in case there's some kind of heavy action. The way the hornbills breed is fascinating, so I'll talk you through it while you absorb the peace and wonder of that African sunset. What happens is they find a hole in a tree, which they don't necessarily dig. In fact, they don't excavate themselves. It will normally have been excavated by something like a woodpecker or a barbet, and the male and female will go in, investigate it, and then the female will go inside and she will shed all of her feathers and become naked inside the tree hole, and the male will seal her in with mud. So he'll seal the hole, and that is very important because she's obviously extremely vulnerable when she has no feathers on her body at all. She will then lay the eggs, and he will feed her through a small slit while she incubates them. He'll come back every day and feed her through a small slit in the mud sort of wall. And when the chicks eventually hatch, she's normally grown her feathers back sufficiently to come out, and you can tell the female that's just given, or that's just hatched some youngsters, because her tail is normally much shorter than it would be normally. Then what happens is the two of them reseal the nest while the fledglings, or while the chicks are inside, also naked and very vulnerable, and they feed the chicks through the same slit that the female would have been fed through. And eventually, when they're big enough, around about, well, probably a little bit smaller than the chaps you're seeing now, they fledge, they come out of the nest, and they sit magnificently silhouetted against the African sunlight for us. It's really rather special. The other fascinating thing that they do, of course, is that the male will put a millipede skeleton, exoskeleton, if we can find it, into the mud of the nest, and what that does is that it pretty much poisons it, so predators will avoid it. Millipede exoskeletons have got cyanide in them, just small quantities. I don't think eating a millipede would necessarily cause you immediate death. It would certainly be very unpleasant though. And that poison helps to protect the hornbill's nest from attack by predators that might have designs on the little chicks. Isn't that a lovely picture? The little one preening himself and having his evening poo, of course. That's an almost totally unbelievable colour that you're seeing there. I mean, it's just magnificent. You can hear a number of birds in the background. Just be quiet for sort of 30 seconds and I'll tell you what we can hear. I can hear some red-billed wood hoopus, or green wood hoopus as they're now called. Interesting question while we look at, I mean, that is so gobsmackingly beautiful that it's almost unbelievable. Bob, while we look at that amazing site on Twitter, you wanted to know what are the hornbill's enemies. Bob, depends on the size of the hornbill, of course. The chicks would be particularly vulnerable in their nests to raptors like gymnogenes, which are eagle-like raptors. They're big birds of prey with feet that we call double-jointed, with double-jointed intertarses, and basically what that means is that the elbow joint on the foot will bend both ways. So they land on a tree and they'll bend their legs right into the whole nest hole, and they'll pull the chicks out and eat them. So they'd be very vulnerable to those. They'd also be vulnerable to snakes in the tree hole if they happen to be there without any protection. Something like a tree snake, a boomslang, or a vine snake. Vine snake is English, so a vine snake would go in there and eat the chicks out. So snakes certainly. Then when they get older, they'll be fall prey to it's normally the birds of prey that will come and get them sometimes, but you can see they were sitting out there in the open pretty fearlessly, I think, and I suspect that's because of the time of the day. You won't find them always sitting out in the open like that in the heat of the day when it's easy for the big birds to fly. And then the other thing that they would struggle with at night while they're roosting would be something like a genet or a civet or even an African wildcat, which might climb up a tree and try and grab them. And then a very interesting one from Betty Lou in Minnesota. When do male hornbills molt? They don't, What they do is they will They will shed the odd feather. They will do it briefly. So just for those of you who perhaps don't know, molting means to get rid of old feathers and basically replace them with new ones. And very, very few birds that I know of, in fact the female hornbill is the only one, will get rid of all the feathers at the same time and then get a new set. They're constantly being replaced, and certainly in the raptors you can see it every so often when they lose feathers in the wings, and you can see a missing primary feather, normally from the same part on each wing, and what that does is will obviously balances out the flight, but they do need to be replaced the whole time because they're not quite dead, but they certainly don't have a vascular network that allows them to regenerate and heal particularly well. And that's why birds are such fastidious preeners. Preening is when they put their beaks into little oil glands in their bodies, and they cover the feathers in the oil, and they make sure that the filaments, which are the sort of long bits, you've all picked up a bird feather before and split them apart like that. The filaments are all those kind of, well, I suppose you could call them hairs if you like, but they're not hairs. The filaments need to be perfectly in line on a bird, and that's why they preen constantly. They don't regenerate themselves in the same way that, say, our hair or our skin might do that. So, good question, thank you for that, but I don't think a male hornbill ever completely molts. They'll lose feathers from time to time and just replace them as they go along. Right, I think that's the best we're going to get out of this magnificent sun. So we'll press on and see what we can find. I have to agree with some of your sentiments that this is the most beautiful sunset that you've ever seen on drive so far, and I think it is for me too. Andrew?
No, the
Top five?
The hornbills made it.
The hornbills made it. Andrew, of course, has a slightly obsession with hornbills. What was your friend's name, Andrew?
Billy.
Billy.
He's still my friend.
He's still your friend. When was the last time you saw him, Andrew?
It's been some time.
It's been some time. So he may have forgotten you.
Unlikely, but possible.
He is a bird brain. Andrew had a strong relationship with the yellow-billed hornbill. Question from Cecilia in Maryland, who was apparently blown away by my photograph and wonders when I will teach a photography class. Cecilia, I'm an appalling photographer. That photograph that you saw was made entirely by the settings on the camera and the subject that was filmed. I will never be teaching a photography class. I'm not a very good photographer at all. Here are some beautiful zebras. And I'm just going to sneak past this termite mound because there are some impala as well. We'll get them both in shot, and in so doing win an Emmy Award. Not. So it was interesting to me that this is not the best position. We're just going to stop here and see if they don't come out. So there are a whole lot of impala and zebra here, also enjoying the sunset like the hornbills were, and they're grazing, interestingly I think, around a termite mound. So some of the grass won't have shot yet after that rain we've had today, but certainly by tomorrow it will have. And they're eating around a termite mound, which will produce much more nutritious grass than any other kind of area. Should we go back a bit, Andrew? I think this is bottom view is perhaps not the best angle for these zebra. Well, there we go. I've got some facial expression there. Disappearing into the bush. I'm just going to sneak back slightly. Herbivores very seldom will ever get to the stage of confidingness. I don't think that's a word, but basically they will struggle to be as confiding or relaxed around vehicles or habituated to vehicles as the predators or the bigger game like the elephants. You can see them just jogging off, and that's definitely because they're just a little bit nervous of the vehicle. And you can hear the cicadas calling. Oh, so much wonderful sound. Such a lovely sound of summer. And the smell in the air, of course, coming from the earth after the rain. Petrichor is what it's called. I was reminded again of that this morning. I think it was Marianne who reminded me from Baltimore. Thank you, Marianne, for that. I forget that word on a daily basis. And for those of you who don't know what it is, perhaps you weren't watching this morning, you were possibly curled up in your bed, asleep and comfortable. Petrichor is the smell that comes off the earth after rain, and you all walked outside, I'm sure, after a rainstorm and smelt that delightful smell that comes off, especially wild areas. You even get it in cities, but especially in wild areas here, that smell that comes off the earth after rain. And that is surrounding us all right now. Right, on we go. Okay, we're going to continue our search. I'm hoping that we're going to pick up some tracks or signs of a leopard in this area. I haven't seen a leopard in this area for a very long time. I know that Mvula and Djuma were over there, sort of south of us, not too long ago, and I'm hoping one of them is going to come across. I will keep you posted on that search, but while I look around, let's head across to Brent, who is with a few pachyderms, and he will tell you his impressions of them after his beautiful lion sighting. See you just now.
Elephants everywhere. Isn't it fantastic to have so many eddies around at the moment? So we're with another breeding herd, quite a big one by the looks, probably 15 to 20 individuals, all around us at the moment. A young female in front of us. All around. Beautiful sky, beautiful eddies. You can see now grazing where they have the choice, and as the rainy season progresses and the grass comes back, the eddies will choose to graze over browse at this time of the year and going forward, but as it dries and winter comes, they then again choose to eat more trees than grass, so I choose to browse. And this is quite good. It does give the trees a good 6-7 month period where they are not too badly eaten on by elephants, so it gives them a chance to recuperate, and that's nature looking after itself. So obviously, with all these breeding herds around, we're seeing quite a lot of wonderful little babies. And Teresa's wondering about the milk tusks in elephants, and wondering if I've ever found one in my wanderings in the bush, and at what age do they lose them. So, and Teresa, we've got this little elephant in front of us. It's probably about 2 years old. And so obviously milk tusk long gone by now. They lose them just before a year old, and I unfortunately have not ever found an elephant milk tusk out in the bush. And also, if I did, I would leave it there, or I would hand it in to the correct officials. It is illegal to pick up, carry, or be holding ivory, and you can get into big trouble for doing that, and you can find yourself as a guest of the state. With 3 free meals a day and terrible coffee, from what I've been told. So I've heard of people who've even just picked up broken pieces of tusk from elephant bulls fighting, and have gotten into lots and lots of trouble from that. Here's Jiggy. Came to try sneak up on us and give us a little charge. Now obviously pretending. Let me just move forward as a splash. Boisterous little elephant in front of us. Quite often head held very high. There we go. Some displacement behavior. Might turn around and show us, but obviously not too much threat from a little one like this. So there we go. Ears out, head out, quite often coupled with quite a lot of head shakes. And normally, and of course there's never ever one set rule with these things, is that an elephant will move its trunk or wrap its trunk up. It's one of its most important body parts, so it doesn't want to damage it, and the ears will remain flat and not open when they're coming into a full charge. And even in those situations, you can stop a full charge with some correct language, shouting at them, make noise, clapping. You can quite often stop a full charge before it goes through. Obviously it's very important to just read the animal's behavior. Thankfully all of us out here have got lots and lots of experience, and I grew up in an area in northern Botswana where we would see 1,000 elephants on a game drive, and these elephants weren't nearly as relaxed as our Sabi Sands elephants. Quite often they hadn't seen a vehicle, or maybe didn't see a vehicle for 6 or 7 months at a time, whereas these elephants and the Kruger elephants see vehicles on a daily basis, so they're far more used to it. So I did learn an incredible amount about elephant behavior and reading elephant body language during that time in my life, and I was also very fortunate to have some incredible teachers while I was there, my dad probably being paramount amongst them. And he started taking us on walking and on foot into elephants regularly from when we were about 5 years old. So very, very lucky to have the upbringing that I've had. And I do absolutely love spending time with Ellies, whether it be on a vehicle or on foot. One of my first memories was of an elephant on foot. I was about 2 years old in Botswana, and my parents had stopped at a waterhole for a drink stop, and I meandered off, and they suddenly realized I was missing. I tended to do that quite a lot as a child over the years, and my dad found me about 5-6 meters away from a huge elephant bull, and I was talking to the elephant, having a full conversation in my gibberish, and my dad managed to walk up and remove me from the situation and give me a hell of a hiding, which was thoroughly deserved. I think he was more scared that his son was going to be stood on by 7 tons of elephant, and since then I've spent an inordinate amount of time with Ellies, and definitely one of my favorite animals, especially on foot. So all along the edge of this little drainage line, slowly feeding, very spread out, and elephants do that quite often when they are feeding. I mean, they're probably spread out over about 300-400 meters at the moment. So while these ellies move off into these thickets, we're going to go back to Commander Bond, from the heaviest land mammal in the bush to the tallest.
And from the tallest presenter that we have to the shortest. Welcome to a lovely giraffe sighting. A cow. She is browsing, and you can see the great pinkness of the cold front that came through today, with the storm in the background. She has decided that she is now very shy. She heard Louise calling in that we were live and ducked her head behind a ziziphus tree. Now the ziziphus tree is an extremely thorny affair, but it's also very tasty, and a giraffe will deal with the fact that the thorns are pretty vicious for the lovely taste of the buffalo thorn, or Ziziphus smocrinata. Now I'm going to try to reverse back a bit. She's on the next door reserve, so it's not possible to drive in there off-road after her. What I will do, I'm just going to go a little bit forward, put it in reverse and go a little bit back. There is another giraffe around here, but it's also gone into the deeper bush, I think. There it is. Look at that, Andrew. Marvellous. Yeah, it's a bit easier to look at. No, it's not a fossil behind a tree. Sorry, and go back a little bit further. There we go. Is that right? There we go. Another cow. And of course we use the term journey of giraffe. It's not a biological term, it's just quite a nice alliterative term. Journey of giraffe, and these ones are particularly irritating because they don't want to be seen. But a journey of, or herd of giraffe is normally a number of related females and their babies, and then the bulls kind of wander between groups. They're not, there we go, oh, there's another two, look, can you see them there? Is that any good thing?
Very good.
They're fine. And they're pretty loose social associations. So unlike the elephant herds, which are very stable and tend not to change up a huge amount, these giraffe herds apparently are pretty loose associations, and the cows will move between groups dependent on, well, I guess their relationships with the others in the group. Look at that tongue. Isn't that amazing? It's so long. I think it is the, if I'm not mistaken, the land mammal with the longest tongue. Certainly wouldn't surprise me. Also beautiful eyelashes. She's been working with her mascara all day long, and those eyelashes, apart from providing, they really are quite stunning, apart from being very pretty, provide an extremely important function. You can see she just basically headbutted an extremely thorny tree. And what those eyelashes do is protect the eyes from the thorns. It's very important. Now we're looking at the horns. Of course, there are lots of, well, they're not lots, there are two horns on each giraffe's head, and the female's horns are very sort of dainty. And Gracie in Ohio, aged just 8 years, wants to know if they ever break off. Gracie, they do. I've never seen a female with a broken horn though, because they don't fight as much, you see. The bulls, or the males, tend to fight with each other quite a lot, and sometimes, not very often, but sometimes those horns do snap off, and then you will find a male with either one just sort of floppy, sort of flopping there, or you'll find him with it broken completely off. There we go, they're coming on to Djuma now. That's wonderful. Look at the way they walk. Always looks like it's completely slow motion to me. I think the rest you'll find will come across. There we go. So Gracie, sometimes they will break their horns. It's not very often though. And it's always the males. Remember, the males, just like with human beings, like to fight with each other more than the females do. There we go. And rather like I was saying with the elephants, where the bulls are so much bigger than the cows, it's the same thing with giraffe. Giraffe look immensely tall, and then you see a bull standing next to a cow and you realize how, I mean, he's almost a third bigger than her again. So the males will be up to 4.5 meters tall, and the females normally not much more than 3.2 meters. That's still pretty tall. I mean, if you put Brent and Brian standing on top of each other, you might get to almost the height of a giraffe cow. Right, good. There we are. Marvelous giraffe sighting. Oh, another one coming across the road. Oh, 4 or 5 of them in this little journey. There we go. All right, let's try and turn around. Good. And it is starting to get a little bit nippy now. Certainly not freezing by any stretch of the imagination, but it is much cooler than it has been, and that's of course because we've had some rain today and some cloud cover, which means that the burning sun has not roasted us like it has over the past week or so. You may lose us here as we go through this dip. If you do, I will see you on the other side. Oh, it's a lovely smell. Right, let's nip across to Brent. He's with some beefaloes at Treehouse Dam. I'm going to head past Twin Dams here and see if we can't find sign of anything interesting. We'll go across to Brent and I'll see you just now.
And here we are at the Treehouse Waterhole, what's left of it, with a group of retired gentlemen and an incredibly beautiful African sky. And they've been wallowing in the mud, getting rid of some ticks and keeping away from the biting flies. This particular gentleman has had a haircut and he's broken off half his horn, and you can see him there ruminating. I'm quite happy there are no lions around here at the moment. And we can hear a da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da in the background is a lilac-breasted roller calling from the darkness behind us. And number 3 out of Africa's Big 5 on this sunset safari. The Cape buffalo or African buffalo. And I haven't done this for so long, I think we should play a little game. So I'm a very big fan of all the original Victorian collective nouns for animals. And let's see who can remember or who knows what the original Victorian collective noun for a group of buffalo is. Obviously we quite often call them herds these days, but way back when they were called something else. And if you know the answer, don't forget, send through your answers via email to questions@wildearth.tv, or if you are tech savvy and hip with social media, you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. It's always great to sit quietly at a spot like this and listen as well. I mean, wonderful that we've got some buffalo here, and that sky is just phenomenal. But if there is a leopard around, we should hear alarm calls, or even possibly a territorial call from that leopard at about this time of the day. And we're at the time where certain creatures of the night are going to start moving. Bush babies, janets, civets, bats, honey badgers, nightjars, owls. And speaking of owls, I'm going to keep quiet in a second. We can hear an owl calling. Tiny little owlet calling. It's not the full call of the pearl-spotted owlet. The full call would be generally, and I know James is far better at this than me, but I'll give it a bash. And let's see if we get an answer. We're getting an answer from a different owl behind us. Buffalo is looking to the direction of that owl calling, probably not because the owl might have heard something. Those elephants are slowly making their way towards here. Maybe he's heard the elephants crashing in the bush and he's not too sure what it is. And we've got the crested francolins. We can hear that owl responding. Let's go a little bit closer to where that owl's calling and see if we can get a view. And as darkness settles, out come our spotlights. I'll quickly check around the edge of the dam, make sure a leopard hasn't managed to sneak up onto us in the dark. Try to call that owl again when I get a little bit closer to where I thought he was calling from. I absolutely adore this time of the day. My dad calls it magic hour just after the sunset. Twilight. Always a good time to look for crepuscular hunters. For those wondering what crepuscular means, it means animals or birds that are most active at dusk and dawn. There's some really good answers there from a bunch of people, Karen, Crystal, Judy, and many others. Unfortunately, none of you have got it right. Someone was on the right track with an obstinacy, but as far as I know, the original collective, Victorian collective noun is called an indomitability of buffalo. Obviously they developed quite a fierce reputation amongst the early Victorian and European settlers in Africa, and that goes down to Africa's Big Five. And the Big Five are the originally got their name from the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt on foot, and buffalo incredibly tough and have retired many a hunter over the years. Okay, let's just get up onto the flat ground ahead and see if we can find this little owlet again. Okay, just have a quick little whistle. So it doesn't look like my challenge is being accepted. I think I've been seen straight through by that little owlet. And along with the other noises, apart from the owls and the francolins that were just making a cacophony as the last light disappeared, we also surrounded by this incessant buzzing of cicadas. And let's see if we can spot one. Sometimes they're easier to spot at night. Definitely one on this tree, Brian. Hear him. I'm going to try and find you a cicada, and while we do that, it can be quite difficult. We're going to cross back to Commander Bond, who's a tiny, tiny little member of our Djuma family.
Hello everyone. We don't normally do this. There's a very little wash of light in the front of the car. I'm not going to put a spotlight on what we're looking at, but underneath its mother's stomach, what looks like a small grey rock is in fact a baby elephant, definitely less, just probably a few months old, asleep on the ground there. And so often people ask us, do they sleep? How do they sleep? And there's the answer. So Mum is just feeding quietly around here, and the little one is lying down on the ground, fast asleep. It didn't stir as we drove up, and sometimes you see this and you think maybe they're dead, but we've just watched quite carefully, and the little stomach is rising and falling as it sleeps completely soundlessly there. We're not going to stay here for long. Just a quick look to show you that elephants do actually lie down on the ground and sleep. Isn't that beautiful? Completely sound asleep. Okay, there we go. We're not going to stay here. I obviously don't want to disturb them, and we don't normally put any kind of light on elephants. So I'm going to move the light off there. And if you want to ask me questions about that, of course, you are more than welcome. We'll drive on slowly. Just leave that little elephant to its slumbering. Oh, quickly, let's go to Brent. He's got some cicadas for you. Wonderful. Sorry, apparently we are still live. We can't get hold of Brent, but he has got mating cicadas, and as soon as we can get hold of him, we'll send you across to them. That will be fascinating. I've been trying to find the cicada the whole time since they came out, which was about 4 weeks ago. All right, he's... Oh, okay. So he is standing by now, but apparently the carnal act that was being performed by the cicadas is now over. We'll send you across to him and he can tell you all about it. Now.
Welcome back, everyone, and in my search for cicadas, I followed a noise on the ground, so I thought, well, that can't be a cicada, it must be a cricket. And we've got these large cricket species here. I'm not 100% sure which. They could be one of the mole crickets or burrowing crickets. And here is a very happy-looking male who just mated with a female, who's now scurried off to go, looks like mate with another one. Oh, Brian, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but I can just see her moving. There she goes. And she's actually seems like she's heading off in the direction of where another male's calling. So, off to increase her chances. And there's another, oh, sorry Brian, just come to the right. Looks to be another female there who's actually excavating a burrow. So we had that little shower today. It's obviously got a lot of the insect life out and about. Oh, pop down there. So obviously, let's feed the male still here. Sorry, Brian. There's the male. But obviously, these incredible noises and calls are very important for these animals to find each other for mating. There we go. Brian, I'm going to go back to the hole. That's the one calling. There we go. And that vibration is so fast that we can hardly see it with our eyes. Or when the male's moving towards that female. Oh, she went down the hole. Maybe she's not so keen. Let's just see what happens. Oh, and off he went down the hole after her. Oh well. Win some, you lose some. Okay, let's go see what else we can find out here. Oh wait, no. Oh, being chased out. Back down again. So she might be ready to lay eggs already, and that's why she's not very interested in the male's maneuvers. But like any good male, I think he's going to show some persistence. Oh, dude! Go away! Oh, there we go. He's been evicted again. And I think that's that. That eviction is over. And I will... so Raisa was asking about the cicadas. It's like, well, where are all the animals and birds that eat the cicadas? They're around, Raisa, but there's just so many cicadas around. And of course, they're not the only ones adding to this incredible nocturnal noises. I quite like the sound of all the insects at night, and owls and hyenas. I think a lot of what we're hearing around us now, from just having a look, are the crickets on the ground rather than cicadas. And I'm sure during the summer months in Finland, where Rais is from, you must get quite a few insects as well. And I'm sure they create their own cacophony. It's always wonderful this time of year. We can start looking for scorpions and chameleons and all sorts. Oh, and look, I think I found one of the stranger creatures out in the African bush, a tailless primate, and that goes into with what Philip was asking. Philip was wondering, what is a bush baby? Philip, welcome on the live safari drive. And a bush baby is an animal who's about the same size as James Hendry, except it has a tail. It climbs in trees. I will show you a picture of one just now once I manage to get around James, who is hiding from us at the moment. If we have a look there, and if we put the spotlight on, we just see some feet. He's taking it easy. Andrew and James are fast asleep. It's probably because they couldn't find any animals this afternoon apart from the elephants. But there we go. Andrew's trying not to laugh. He's got Andrew gave Andrew let it go. Andrew couldn't keep a straight face.
Hey everyone, what a funny joke we were playing. Ha ha ha.
So it looks like we're both working in the same area. Unfortunately, no sounds of alarm calls or whatnot yet. But a bit bright.
Be a safari live first, I think.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yes. What happened to the lions?
It was really, really interesting. So when we arrived there, before we went live, at that main T-junction, the 7 Salala animals were sleeping, and the 3 were 20 meters away from them eating the buffalo carcass. The Salala animals then got off and went to go have a drink, and we came back as the hyenas, and it wasn't that many, only about 6 or 7 hyenas, rushed in and charged those other 3 lions. And
the young lionesses?
One I think's a bit older. But yeah, there's 3 young lionesses, and chased them off, and then harassed them running around because the one lion ran off with a piece of rib cage. And then what happened is that they moved basically towards that little concrete waterhole in front of the camp there, and the hyenas were literally running everywhere, cackling, being hyenas. And then the 3 lionesses went off to the right, away from the rest of the pride, and one adult female from the pride followed them and stopped close to her, and then didn't actually ever do any contact.
They might be related.
Must be. Otherwise, I think, and I mean, 7 versus 3 and young 3 opposed to that. I got a very interesting message from Karen Gillen, who's obviously one of our admins at Wild Earth, and also has been maintaining quite a lot of the lion and leopard pages and trying to keep. And she says the original Shimungwe pride, I don't think they're Shimungwe though. I don't know. They could be.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I would say they're lions. But the original Salala lioness broke from the Shimungwe, which was Carsten pride. So, but if they are related, it could be quite a long way back. And
distant cousins.
Yeah, but imagine that normally, but we've seen even close related lions that have split for long enough fights. So maybe it's just that everyone's drawn a temporary truce because of all the male lion pandemonium.
There's 3 lions there, or the 3 Shimungwes, whatever they are, the Salalas there, the Talamatis, not sort of 3 or 4 kilometers away from them?
Probably a little bit less.
A little bit less?
Yeah.
So
we're 2.5 k's.
Lions in the territory of 1.
Of the Nkuhumas who have gone back into the Kruger National Park.
Yeah. Nkuhuma's not here. All rather fascinating.
Yes, lions will keep us guessing. Well, we're going to go look for a bush baby for Philip.
We're going to find a leopard.
And hopefully, one of us will find a leopard or a bush baby. We'll take either at the moment.
Which way are you going?
I'm going to head back to Djuma down.
We'll go this way.
Bye.
Bye, Brian. Come on. Bye.
So yeah, that was our afternoon meeting. Nice to have you guys involved in that discussion about the lion dynamics at the moment. Fascinating stuff that's happening. So Philip, sorry, back to the bush baby before I got distracted by our camp bush baby, James. So it's a very small primate with really big ears and a long tail and incredibly well-developed nocturnal vision. Another name for them is galagos. And in this area we've got 2 species. The South African bush baby, which is a very small little guy, which is the most common one, and the thick-tailed bush baby, which is actually quite big. We don't get thick-tails up here. They're generally far more confined to the larger river systems in the area. So further south of us and further east of us, you'll get thick-tailed bush babies, and they're great fans of figs. But all of them are sort of, the lessers are quite heavily insectivorous, so they eat lots of moths and katydids and nocturnal grasshoppers and crickets and whatever they can find, but they are arboreal. So arboreal means they live in trees, and they like to live in little hollows in the trees, and they make wonderful nests, and they quite tightly little family groups will live in this. And I've had a few pet bush babies over the years that we've rescued. One particular one was called Gremlin. And one problem about having a pet bush baby is when you go to bed, they're awake and want to play. And the gremlin would jump onto your face to wake you up if you weren't paying enough attention. The other thing which a lot of people obviously would have quite a problem with, it's quite disgusting. So a very particular bush baby trait is that they urinate on their hands and feet constantly. There's a couple of reasons for this. It apparently helps with a bit of stickiness for gripping while they're jumping through the branches, but that is by far the lesser reason for it. The main reason is it helps them spread their scent further. And so when scent marking territorial boundaries and whatnot, there will always be a little bit of urine on their feet that will help them mark a lot wider area with a little bit of urine.
Everyone, the intention behind our little sort of cameo sleep performance there was that Brent would just drive past. Andrew, of course, was unable to contain himself and started giggling, and that, of course, ruined what was didn't ruin it, I suppose. It alerted them to the fact that we were in fact awake. And then an interesting discussion on those lions. It really is fascinating to me that we've got 3 prides of lions in the middle of the territory of another pride which has absconded off to the Kruger Park. And I think it's probably got everything to do with the Birmingham boys and the effect that they've had on this area. And I wonder, I know that Junior hasn't been seen for a while, and for those of you who are perhaps new viewers, Junior is a 3.5-year-old male, probably pushing 4 by now, you know, with the Nkahuma pride that has been, well, I mean, he certainly is under a great deal of danger from the new coalition of males called the Birmingham Coalition. There is not a chameleon. I thought it was a chameleon, but it isn't. It's a butterfly. Can you see it there, Andrew?
Yes.
You know what, the light is not great for these things. No, there it is. Everybody, it looks much... Oh, there we go. That's a lovely picture of it. Well done. So that's the African migrant, it's called. And we've seen lots and lots of them around recently. I think they must have just come out of their pupas, whatever. I don't know what they eat. They eat... Oh, sorry, I do know what they eat, actually. The adults eat acacia flowers. I'm not sure what the larvae eat. And I think that a lot of people leave school and forget their biology immediately. And I just want to quickly go through how the life cycle of a lepidopterid butterfly works. And you learnt this all when you were probably 6 or 7 years old, and in case you've forgotten, what happens is that one of those things, assuming that's a female, will, and you can actually tell if you can see the wing spots, but not from this distance, she will lay an egg on whatever food source it is that the caterpillar will eat, and then the egg will hatch into a caterpillar, which of course doesn't resemble that thing at all. Now a caterpillar, astonishingly, the next time you see one in your garden, or perhaps climbing out of an apple that you've just bought from the supermarket, before you run away squealing, have a look at how many legs it has. And many people think caterpillars have lots of legs. Caterpillars only have 6 legs, exactly like the adults. They are insects, and therefore they only have 6 legs. The caterpillar will then eat voraciously with a great hunger, like Andrew and I are going to when we get back from drive, and on whatever it is. So in the case of the African migrant, it may well be combretum trees. Certainly they sit on combretum trees. And then what happens is the caterpillar will pupate. It forms a chrysalis around its body, and that chrysalis is a kind of hard shell. And the caterpillar then, it's still a very mysterious process that we don't fully understand, but basically the caterpillar will metamorphosize or change into the butterfly. And inside that chrysalis, it almost goes into like a jelly-like liquid. It loses that look of a caterpillar completely, and it becomes a jelly or liquid, and eventually is reconstituted as a magnificent, beautiful butterfly. And those butterflies are such a pretty green color, especially when they're caught in the daylight sun. It really is a beautiful minty green color. And someone once told me that human beings go through a similar kind of psychological metamorphosis where we go into a chrysalis phase, if you like, where we don't know, we don't understand who we are, where we are, and change is afoot. And it's a difficult time because we feel totally liquefied and we don't really have a direction. And then slowly we reconstitute and eventually emerge as a butterfly with a direction. I think that's a rather lovely analogy. Andrew, what do you think?
Beautiful.
You think it's ridiculous, don't you? Beautiful. That's called the African migrant. Right. Let us press along. Hoping to see a chameleon, of course, as well. And the interesting thing about that African migrant is that it's a similar colour to a chameleon that's hiding in the night time. And I think that that kind of almost luminous green-white is probably invisible to some of the predators that might eat them at night. And I'm just trying to think what would eat one of them at night. A chameleon certainly would be taken by a snake, but they're probably pretty much asleep at night. But then they might also be taken by a nocturnal predator like a genet, or even some of the owls, I guess. I'm just going to quickly get out of the way here. Hello, Craig. Oh, sorry about that light. Sorry, there we go.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
How's it going?
All right. Where
Good.
do you come from?
We have come from the deep east. Deep east, the far east, yes.
Far east.
The far east. There were some elephants,
Yes.
and that was all. Right.
Okay.
As you were, you off to dinner?
Slowly.
Good.
Monkey.
Good. Well, don't catch too many. There aren't many around. Enjoy your dinner. Sorry for blinding you as you pulled up.
Snoobabs running around.
Okay, super.
Yes, well, we'll meet you bright and early in the morning.
All right. That's Craig from Cheetah Plains, and Cheetah Plains just to the southeast of us. He's been up with the lions, and you probably met him there with Brent earlier. Of similar colour to those African migrants when you're looking at night. And so people are always astonished when you, as a guide or a tracker, are able to spot them at night and you get acclaimed as a great hero of the bushveld. When actually, when you know what you're looking for, it's pretty easy to find them. I have to confess that I have taken credit a few times. People say, "Oh, James, how did you do that?" And I say, well, you know, it's a very rare talent, of course, that I developed over many years in the bush. Pretty obvious. Once this light casts across a chameleon, you see it almost immediately. There's not many of them around right now. The other things that we might, which are nocturnal birds, very cleverly designed insect catchers, bush baby saying. The thing is with a bush baby though, is that during the summertime, rather than the acacia gum that they eat during the winter, and so we see more of them in the winter because there's not so much food around, and it's just much more concentrated that there is. So all the way from Finland, where no doubt it's getting pretty cold right now. Raisa, you would want to know how much rain we had today. We had about 1 centimetre, I would say, 10 millimetres, maybe just less. So about 1/3 of an inch. And you want to know if that would have made a difference to the number of insects there are around here today. No, I don't think it has. I think it's actually had the opposite effect. And that's simply because it's cooled the air down a lot. And obviously for an insect, it's not easy to move around when it's very cool. And so I think what you'll find is that tomorrow evening there may be more insects than there were yesterday evening. But right now, because of the cool atmosphere that the rain has given us, there are fewer insects around than there were, say, last night or 2 nights ago. Certainly fewer of them bashing into my eyes and into Andrew's legs as he sits behind me. They do They are inexorably attracted to the light of the spotlight, and also the neon. There's a kind of LED light that shines on me from behind Andrew, and I think basically is ideally positioned so that insects fly up his shorts basically, and so every so often you might hear a thumping around, and that's Andrew who's been attacked by a beetle of some sort. Never a nice thing. We're now into the sort of far western side of Djuma, obviously not in Arathusa yet, which is the property to the west of us, and we are coming towards a very large, another torture tree. Remember, we had the torture tree next to the torture boundary that we were on a little while back with those elephants, and the reason we are here is that this is a haunt. It's always the territorial boundary between Kruger, an 11-year-old female leopard who we see relatively regularly, and her daughter Shadow, who was seen 2 days ago killing an impala not too far from here. And so it's always a good idea to just pop around and see if one of them isn't perhaps marking territory, especially on the territorial boundary, and especially after some rain. You'll find that the predators do go out and remark their boundaries just to make sure that there aren't any incursions. In the case of Karula and Shadow, not so much, because they are mother and daughter, and so if they do meet, well, there's probably not the friendliest mother and daughter meeting in the world, but certainly isn't aggressive as it would be with unrelated females and unrelated males. Maybe I should turn the lights back on, Andrew. Let me send you back. There we go. So while I'm shining the spotlight, what you want to look for, of course, is the shining of eyes in the darkness. And if you don't see the shining of eyes in the darkness, the flash, kind of pale white flash of a chameleon. And the other thing I think we'll do right now, while we sit here, is stop and have a listen. There are two sounds I want you to hear. There are two very distinct insects that are calling now. The bird should be asleep. So you can hear the cicadas going. And you can also maybe hear something called a rain locust. And it's going. Can you hear it, Andrew?
Yes.
Isn't that cool? It's such a melodic thing for an insect to make. Sounds like some of the music Andrew plays, some of the electronic music that he plays. And then there is the odd fog actually off in this, to the western side there. It's probably a little puddle or something that they're living in. And then you did hear that ring-necked dove going cuckoo, cuckoo. Very odd time of the night for them to be around. Probably its last call before it goes to bed. Wonderful sounds of the night. Let us continue. Now, while we're driving along looking at nothing but green vegetation, Miss Lena is watching with her class of children. Miss Lena, I'd love to know how old those kids are, but from what the sounds of things, you're probably preschool, kindergarten kids, and they want to know, and you with them, how long is an elephant's trunk? Excuse me. I tried to combine the words trunk and tusk at the same time. I'm going to begin that again. how long is an elephant's trunk when it's born, and how long does it get when it's an adult? Miss Lena, an elephant's trunk when it's born is actually pretty small. While we're driving along, it's probably only about that long. You see my hands there. And then if it's a big bull, it will be, well, what should we say? Probably almost 10 feet long when it's grown up. I have never measured it, of course, but probably about 10 feet. Huge thing, 10 times the size it was when it was born. But the big thing is with the trunk, that when it's born, the trunk doesn't reach the ground, and that's important. It's interesting because an elephant is so uncoordinated when it's born that they'd step all over the trunk when they were born, and so it can't reach the ground. Then as they get older, what happens is that it lengthens in proportion with their body, so that eventually it's able to touch the ground so that they can graze properly and drink properly out of water, at least out of ponds and things. And then the other thing that happens when they are older is that it becomes much more, I'm trying to say this in a simple way, I think you might have to draw it for your kids, Miss Lena, concertina-like. So what it does is it stretches, it becomes much more stretchy, like a slinky, if you like, as they get older. Oh, right, let us go across to Brent. He's got a reptile for you to have a look at, and I will see you a little bit later.
And there, camouflaged at the top of this combretum or bush willow, is a very large flap-neck chameleon. And you can see that camouflaged working well. You can see the tail and the body. He's facing away from us. So it's a very big chameleon. We only get one chameleon species here. And with the rains, we should start seeing them more and more. This one is obviously not in the most ideal spot to look at him. But I'm going to try and move the car in a second or two, see if we can get a slightly different angle. But as Brian pulls out, you'll see how high up in the tree this chameleon is. And we'll see if we can get another view of him. And so he's right up at the top of the tree. Let's see if we can get a slightly better view, maybe have a look at his cute little face. It's going to be quite difficult. Oh, there we go, maybe. Right, how's that for you, Brian? I think I might have maybe a bit further forward. So there we go. That's the front end. Oops. Sorry. His eye is just behind that leaf. So they move to the peripheries of the branches to sleep during the night, and of course it looks like we absolute rock stars that we spot a chameleon hiding in a tree. But at night they become very pale and white, and it makes them quite easy to spot in the spotlight. And the longer you keep the light on them, the better they become at changing color again. And so, as you can see, slowly disappearing. We're right on the edge of the quarantine clearings, and let's go see if we can find any of those wonderful little nocturnal animals that might be perusing for insects and other prey species after a little bit of rain we had today. It was a very, very soft rain. It wasn't a very large rain. And who knows, maybe we'll spot another chameleon that's in a bit of a spot to look at. So out in these open things, especially after a little bit of rain like we had today, I'm hoping we might find a white-tailed mongoose. There's some general game out on the plains here. We'll see them as we go past. Let's turn off my spotlight for a second. Let's use the dimmer, more dim side light. And we don't want to shine bright spotlights on animals like impala and zebra, which are out here on the plain. I'll just shine near them quickly, but I won't put the light directly on them. I'll just put the lights up into the sky. You just see the impala. There they are. And the reason for this is obviously they're diurnal animals, and they have... Oh! It's not a chameleon, but it is something quite pretty, and something we don't get to see clearly too often during the day. It's now generally highly mobile. Oh no, now I've lost sight of it. Where's it gone? Let me have another look. Quick look if we can see it. There was a butterfly sleeping on the edge of the tree, but I will... there we go. When I was driving, I couldn't get the angle. And it looks like an African vagrant. A lovely little minty green color on the outside of the wings. And guys, it's been so spectacular having you on this sunset safari. Brian and I have thoroughly enjoyed taking you around to Djuma Private Game Reserve, and what an epic couple of safaris the last two safaris have been, with the Salala Pride and those hyenas and the buffalo kill, and as always great elephants everywhere. So from Brian and myself, we're going to say good night and hand you over to James for the last few minutes of show, and don't forget to join us bright and early for the sunrise safari.
Wow, that's cool. Does that mean we like? Hello everyone. I'm standing on a fallen marula tree. There are galloping impala and galloping wildebeest all the way around the place. They've come out onto the clearing so that they can see what's going on at night, and it's going to be very difficult for them. It's cloudy. It's been a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much for participating in it. We've had some beautiful elephants, astonishing lion and hyena activity with Brent, and then some very nice general scenery and good stuff that we managed to see. This marula tree, by the way, has been pushed over, and the reason I'm standing in it is not just because it's interesting to climb, but because it has changed the direction of its growth completely. It's been pushed over by elephants, and it's now growing. Instead of growing sort of in the same direction that it was, it's turned to face the sky, and it's growing up. It's been a wonderful afternoon, like I say. A big thank you to Louise, who's back from Johannesburg in the final control, Tara, who's also there helping out and mentoring, and of course to Brent, Leo Smith and Brian on the other vehicle. It remains for me also to say thank you to Andrew for his contribution. Thank you, Andrew.
Pleasure, sir.
Thank you very much. How much time have we got anyway? Right, 1 minute to go. And thank you to all of you, especially our youngsters. Isabella, little 4-year-old, thank you for your elephant questions. Wonderful to hear from you. And of course, little Gracie, a regular contributor all the way from Ohio. It really does make a difference to hear from our youngsters. And of course, Miss Lena's class, of course, all of them all together. It really does make a difference to us to hear from you. It means a lot. And it means a lot because young kids who become interested in the wilderness will eventually become conservation champions, we hope. And this world, with its huge numbers of people and its increasing pressures on wilderness areas, really need young champions of the wilderness. So thank you very much for your contributions and questions, with our younger viewers especially. It's really good always to hear from you. Right, we are now finished, and it remains for me just to say good night. I can't actually hear or see Andrew, and so I was hoping to be able to see what was going on as far as our closing goes, but I think we Stay healthy and happy and well wherever you are. We will see you tomorrow for the dawn safari at 5:30 our time. And until then, well, goodbye and stay safe.